I'm Anthony Nguyen. Join us as we change the narrative around aged care, one story at a time. Welcome back to the Pioneers in Aged Care podcast. Here we have Lincoln Hopper, the CEO of St Vincent's Care. Thank you, Lincoln, for jumping on the podcast.
Thanks, Anthony. Great to be here.
Before we get on, I want to say thank you to the sponsors. So the sponsors for this episode is Optimum Allied Health. They're a provider of choice for residential aged care facilities focused on the quality of clinical care in their physiotherapy and allied health programs. The other sponsor is Mirrors Australia, whose consulting services and software give you immediate insight into quality, funding, workforce, and customers. So thank you so much to the sponsors for making this episode happen. Now, Lincoln, if we could start off with getting an overview as to St Vincent's Care, services you provide, locations. We'll start broad and we'll go deeper.
Yeah, sure. So probably the headline numbers to begin with, but 3,500 people in our care across residential, retirement and in-home opportunities. We've got about 3,500 people serving them in 30 locations across the eastern seaboard, so Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria. Coupled up with the St Vincent's Health Australia group, so we're part of that much larger St Vincent story with public and private hospitals, virtual care and also our research institutes that we're kind of famous for. So an amazing story. Don't get me started, but over 160 years we've been providing care to people in need, and the care services that I lead today leans into people who are older and supporting them both to live at home as best they can, but also when they can't. We've got residential care offerings for them as well.
That's fantastic. What was your journey into, we'll start with your journey into aged care, then we'll talk about your journey into St Vincent's. How did you get started in aged care?
Yeah, it's a longish story, but I've been
We've got time.
Yeah, no, you don't. 30 odd years in health and human services, so that's kind of where the flame gets lit, if you like. And through that journey in different organisations, I sort of crept up to the aged care story a little, whether that be for older people experiencing some challenge in life. So with Mission Australia, when I was there, we're serving older people who had an experience of homelessness, for example, or drug and alcohol addiction, who are older. But this time with St Vincent's, this is the full tilt actually at aged care proper, if you like. So yeah, it's a 30-year burn really to find my way here, but I guess a longer story is why I do what I do, but that's a story of vocation and calling and just finding my way. But right here, right now is where I'm meant to be, and it's exciting time to be alive at St Vincent's, but I think wider aged care setting too. There's amazing things happening, and we're finally finding our feet as an industry, I think, after a fair bit of change. And yeah, it's an exciting time, it really is.
And how long have you been with St Vincent's Care?
Just clocked 7 years last week, actually.
Congrats.
So thank you, yeah.
And what was that journey into St Vincent's? Why did you choose St Vincent's Care, and what's special about working for them?
Yeah, so that sort of evolving slow story of work that I've done over my life and career in health and human services kind of led to this point, but it was an invitation actually. So the group CEO of St Vincent's and I had worked together previously in other organisations and felt that I had something to offer. So I responded to the invitation. And actually it's a segue into other things about leadership, but it's certainly a signal that I've tried to then carry out in my own leadership, keeping an eye on people, helping them see possibilities maybe they can't see for themselves. So the invitation to come to St Vincent's came out of the blue and came a couple of times. I hadn't quite finished what I was doing where I was at the time, and then it all kind of fell into place and made sense to come here 7 years ago. And best decision I ever made.
And you've been here 7 years since last week. You've seen it all. You've been through the COVID period. How many homes did you say again?
We got 30 in total, including retirement villages, but residential care, we've got 23.
How was that managing the whole COVID process, the pandemic, across 30 homes?
Yeah, well, I think anyone listening to this who was in aged care at the time has the same story that I've got. Everyone's got a COVID story. Yeah, it was challenging, probably the most difficult thing I've done in my career. As we all did in an industry sort of scramble to make sense of regulation and challenge and literally responding to clinical matters in a way. It was probably amplified for St Vincent's because we operate across 3 states and we had 3 sort of speed approaches to that, plus the federal government trying to make sense of that regulation. So it was a challenging time for all of us. So I don't want to suggest that it was any harder for us than anyone else. Yeah. It was difficult, hey. But I'm so proud of that time too. I really am. There's some standouts in that time if you want to talk about.
Do you have any stories you could share?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they're across the whole St Vincent's group in a way, but I think it sort of demonstrates our organisation. But there's some irony when in Victoria here, St Vincent stood up a mass vaccination clinic at the exhibition hall, which they did 105 years literally ago in the same place, in the same building, vaccinating against the Spanish flu. I think it's kind of some deja vu moments for the organisation to be doing what it did a century earlier. But that clinical excellence sort of turned up in our aged care setting. Of course it would, because we brought the best of kind of the exemplary, compassionate care that we're known for. So we were 18 months into COVID before we had our first COVID positive resident, which at the time astounded a whole lot of people, and I think probably didn't surprise me because the effort that we put into it.
That just sunk in, 18 months until you had
we
your
kept
first
it out that long. Yeah, we did, exactly. Which was probably, just a, a good snapshot of how we applied ourselves to the problem and brought the best of St Vincent's to bear. But while we did that, here's the other fun fact. First 12 months of the pandemic, we facilitated 50,000 visits into our home. So not only did we keep COVID out, but we actually still enabled 50,000 people to come and visit when, if you remember through lockdowns, all the rigidity of that process, we were able to justify that clinically and otherwise to allow people still. Now that's a whole lot less than would normally visit. The number sounds big, and it is, but I think it's just relative to the time that we still tried to keep people together as best we could. And there's one story in particular that stands out though. In the heat of all of that, the Ring of Steel in Victoria and all the lockdowns and the hysteria of people, tradies going to Bunnings and then Macca's and KFC and everywhere else, quietly in the background, we were negotiating with 3 state government chief medical officers and their bureaucracies, and we had a visitor from Victoria Transit, New South Wales, into Queensland out to Toowoomba for a final couple of hours with a loved one and then back again. So we don't celebrate that story much, but I think it probably tells us of the sort of commitment that we've got to making things happen as an organisation, which is really just our origin story. The Sisters of Charity birthed St Vincent's 160 years ago in Australia, and we've just followed their call ever since. It's been said that we were Australia's first all-female startup, and that's kind of true. I think the DNA resonates today with this real can-do approach to solving problems, but always putting people at the centre of it. So many more COVID stories. Everyone's got one, and I think the industry did a phenomenal job in such unprecedented, there's that word, but circumstances. So I'm proud of us, but also proud of everyone in aged care.
A lot to be proud of, because I've only recently learnt about the effects of social isolation and loneliness in aged care to facilitate 50,000 visits in a period where, I remember myself being in lockdown and seeing nobody compound that with just having a newborn. We were staying at home anyway, but no one could visit. And yet things were tough. So the positive knock-on effects that you had, even though there were lower numbers than usual, that you'd reap the benefits of that, or the residents would reap the benefits of that too now, because a lot could go wrong in that time if they didn't have that support.
Yeah, it's so true. It's interesting. I remember at the time being a sort of an advocate for a voice of change that said, whilst we were proud of that, opening the door and getting the right people in the right way and facilitating that in a really safe manner, it was really a drop in the bucket compared to what should happen normally, and that 50% of our residents don't get a visit from anyone.
Yeah.
Anytime, forget the pandemic. So there was this, it sort of shone a light, I think, on the loneliness factor, sadly, in aged care that still prevails, where we stand in to be the second family for people as best we can. But it's true. I think let's hope that those visits made all the difference to the life of that resident and their loved ones. We're just proud to do what we could at the time.
This podcast aims to shine a light on aged care and convince those who don't know what an amazing industry it is to consider it as an option. It's generally regarded as the last resort career options for a lot of nurses. To those out there who, one, don't consider aged care as a great place to be, what would you like to say to them? And two, if they were to consider St Vincent's Care as an organisation, what is your message to them? What is your point of differentiation?
So I think lot in that question. I think the answer though is that I have found aged care to be a revelation. So I mentioned that I've spent my time sort of kicking around health and human services and dabbling from time to time in aged care. So this full immersion into it. I wish I'd come here earlier. I think that's the revelation. It's complex, it's complicated, it's difficult, it's challenging, but gee, it's rewarding. And we're at a time in the industry where I really think we're about to pivot to great things. I think the changes that have sort of rolled through over the last few years, as necessary as they may have been, post-Royal Commission, all of that, are settling down. We're finding our feet, and therefore I think the message to someone is you can make a career of this. My journey through my different organisations, and maybe not just aged care, but its similar trajectory, tells you that there are there's so many possibilities, particularly in leadership and advancement. The same is true of aged care, and so we have a message that I would love to think that my role will be occupied soon, I hope, by someone who's just made that journey through various roles within aged care. There's so much to do, so many things to learn, so many great opportunities. But it's in a neck of the woods of serving people at a time when they really need it. And there's something quite profound about that opportunity and service to others, particularly the elderly in society. And everyone's got an experience of that in their family, and they can relate to that. So yeah, I absolutely say it's worth a look, and not just that, but if you were to find your feet here, I think you've found a great career option for yourself. From a St Vincent's perspective, we talk about, we have a little tagline that says kindness works for us. It's a double meaning phrase. So we think kindness is a great way to go about our work. Kindness reaps rewards, but in fact, kindness is the very thing that works for us, literally. People who come to St Vincent's are kind. So I think you will find, like other aged care providers, I don't want to say that we're the only one like this. We're not. We get that. But you will find, I think, an extraordinary level of kindness, a deep commitment to our mission, that's practical but loving in nature, a group of people that want to do the same thing the same way. You'll find an organisation where there's not values posters on the walls, the values are actually in the walls. And we get to think about and talk about our origin story every day, and then translate that into practical things in the 21st century. So I'll start evangelising in a minute about the organisation, but you'll find it a great place. Has 30,000 of us that work at St Vincent's, outside just my little neck of the woods. We've found our people, and it is a truly great place to work. We actually ask that of our staff every year. We have an anonymous survey we send out. 70% of my team completed that this year, so that's 70% of the 3,500.
That's an impressive number.
Oh, it's huge in participation, and in fact 92% of them say the work that they do at St Vincent's makes a difference. That puts us in the top 10% of the world that's surveyed through this instrument, and we're sitting with an engagement score above 84. So it's saying something about the place itself and the people that come here. So I think, summarising all that, St Vincent's, you'd find a place of welcome and inclusion, and alongside other people who think and believe and want to do the same thing that you do from all sorts of walks of life. It's just a truly remarkable organisation.
A huge shout out to whoever came up with that tagline, kindness works for us.
It's not bad,
that. It's pretty good. A lot of excitement in your voice.
Sure.
What are you excited about over the next 12 months? What are you working on? What do you hope to achieve?
Yeah, it's exciting times in aged care. I keep saying that, don't I? I'm not just trying to talk myself into that after years of challenge, but I think it's true. I think we're at this pivot point. And in fact, I know we are. I'm seeing the excitement in that. I think others might see trepidation. I don't know, because we know Australians are ageing rapidly. The demographic curve and boom that's coming and filled with complexity and challenge, particularly with dementia. So we stare into the future, we know what's coming. I just see the potential to serve those people in greater ways than actually run from that. But how to do that well is the problem we have. We won't have enough staff. We know this already. By 2030, we're going to be tens of thousands of nurses short. One of the great things about working at St Vincent's with all of our public, private hospitals, research institutes, home care, we see this problem from 30,000 feet and see all the parts. And so alongside the generic next 12 months of let's keep our sustainability going, let's keep our people happy, all of that work, let's keep residents at the centre of everything, we're looking at this 30,000 view and saying, actually, we think we can play a role in different parts of the aged care continuum, and we'll probably start to pivot towards that. It won't happen in 12 months. In fact, we're starting to prototype some things now already in a few of our homes, but it'll be pivoting towards people with high and complex needs, we think. That seems a very St Vincent's thing to do. We've got this incredible clinical capability across our network. And we see these people coming to our hospitals and then bouncing back out into the aged care sector and bouncing back again, or getting stuck in the hospital because they're too well actually to stay there, but not well enough to return from where they came. They're somewhere in the middle. So we think that's the ground where we might actually start to play. Now, that doesn't exist today, creating a new kind of category of aged care for people with high acuity, challenging behaviours, not a great fit for the current residential aged care setting, at least in numbers and on scale, and otherwise trapped in hospital. So we're starting to think about how we might address that. We're also at the same time thinking, how do we continue to serve those in our care? And so we're looking at virtual and in-person geriatric inreach, trialling that in a couple of our sites now. And with that capability comes some virtual other capabilities that we might be able to bring alongside that, other disciplines, if you like. All of which is just trying to address some of the increasing acuity of residents, but also make their quality of life better, and do it in a way that is more efficient or scalable, knowing this human resource problem we've got coming in the next 10 years. So a few things there to do in the next 12 months, whilst we keep the thing running and delivering on the great care that we do every day, but trialling a few ideas, starting to pivot, starting to challenge our own thinking, and heading down a path that's maybe a little different from where we've been.
Yeah, lots to be excited for. 7 years now in aged care, are you able to talk me through any of the challenges, and I guess more importantly, are there any mistakes that you're open to sharing to see the learning moments? Because we're all human, we all make mistakes and we all try to learn from them. But yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anything you're able to share.
Yeah, a great question. Yeah, there are. There's 1,000 things I would probably think about doing differently. Some of those probably relate to speed. Challenge as a leader is sometimes getting that right. So both ways, going too fast, moving ahead of people's capacity to be able to come with you, or an ability of an organisation to respond, particularly when it's already busy. So there's some tempering the enthusiasm is one issue. And I know there's been some projects and initiatives that have just not landed to the extent we wanted to, because we just moved too quickly and didn't bring people with us. Equally, there's some experiences I've had where we just took too long. We did it, the world moved on, or people moved on, or other opportunities came in and stalled things we were looking at because we just didn't move quickly enough. So it's a real challenge. I don't know if I know the answer to how to make that judgment call, getting it right. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe it's just keeping that in mind as you move, that we bring people through at the pace they can cope. Not too fast, not too slow.
But all these areas are data points that you can refer back to, and then you can make that judgment call when it happens.
I think that's right. Keeping sort of in touch with plenty of things I've run in my life too, where I believed it was working, it wasn't, and I wasn't accessing the data. Now that could have been just literal keeping my eye on things, or actually checking in with people that they were still on board. I've got thousands of scars, but I think it generally sits in that space. I think people are generally up for something new, something different, some change. I mean, I often say I love change when it happens to somebody else, but I think generally speaking, it works if people can see the benefit to their work itself. So in this context, if I come up with some bright idea from somewhere and we actually go forth and try to do something, if I have a harder time convincing someone of that if I can't demonstrate that it's actually making their life better. Yeah. And in our context, that makes a resident's life better. So generally, the failures have been when that hasn't occurred. Yeah, we've not demonstrated that. We've not brought people with us. Flip side of that, the most successful things have actually been when we've supported the ideas of our frontline staff and clinicians. I mean, that's where the powerhouse of ideas and innovation sits.
Anything spring to mind?
Some of the things I was mentioning about this pivot that we're making, these are very much ideas that are coming up from the front line, and how we better respond to people in care that we're simply not meeting the needs of, or our capacity or capabilities topping out, and where do we get the next sort of run of excellence for those people. It's the frontline staff serving that would say, actually, here's 3 ideas that I've got already, Lincoln, that if we put that in, we could actually make things more efficient, we could spend more time with people, more technology, whatever it might be. So listening matters, I think, as a leader, most significantly into that. Thanks. Great question.
And thank you for sharing that. It's only a question that I thought of this week to start asking, because I do want to shine the light on the positive sides of aged care, but I didn't want to ignore all the challenges as well. And also showing the audience out there that we all make mistakes, but as long as we learn from them, we're not. I think I've just seen some things online where the sentiment towards the leaders in the aged care sector are, sitting pretty on their, their thrones and letting things happen and shrugging their shoulders. But no, you guys take this on board. It lives with you, and you try to make changes where you can.
Yeah, and thank you, and it's true. You can get trapped, particularly as a leader and of a larger organisation. You can get very isolated from the reality of what you do. We're sitting in an office that's a distance from one of my homes, for example. So I make a habit of being there as often as I can. At this time of year, I mentioned earlier that we do an annual survey, an anonymous survey at St Vincent's, where we check in with staff. Ask the same questions each year so we can mark our trajectory and see what trends are happening there. I actually go out literally back to each of the homes. I'm doing this time of year, I do it. And I actually present them back with their findings. It's me. And I share with them in group settings what they told us. And then I check back in with them in real time through a process where we gather more information in response to their queries, whether we heard them properly or not. So when we survey them, they say, yes, here's some challenges. I say, is this what you said? They say, yes. We say, great. What's some ideas that we might share to solve that? That's how we generate our projects. I and my leadership team sort of bless those ideas, and we come back in 12 months and say, how do we go? So whether it be new clinical information systems, a new uniform, a reward and recognitions program, inclusion programs, all these things we've been doing that are driving up those engagement scores are ideas that have come from those people in those settings. It's just weird and wonderful and beautiful suggestions that we get to collect. The beginning of my 30-year kind of journey that I spoke about in this work was frontline social work in a difficult part of Sydney. And that I'm still that little social worker running around that just wants to be in everyone's life and understand things from their perspective. I mean, ultimately, they matter most. That's why this organisation exists, and what they say and tell us and their opinion really, really matters. So hearing it for myself is important for me. Yeah, it really is.
I'm going to go to the questions from the sponsors now. So the question from the first sponsor, question is from Dane Mitchell, the Managing Director of Optimum Allied Health. And his question is as follows.
Physiotherapy isn't included in the mandated care minutes, so it's not directly funded under NA. But given that about 30% of people over 65 fall each year, and falls drive over 40% of injury-related hospitalisations, what would including physio in care minutes, or even better, tying funding to outcomes like mobility and falls reduction, allow you to do better as a provider?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we know that preventing falls have all sorts of good outcomes for people. It sounds obvious saying it, right? Who wants to? But the knock-on effect of falling as an older person has all sorts of difficult trajectories. And we know too, preventing falls and keeping people well has all sorts of other benefits too, not just related to not falling. Quality of life, wellness, happiness, etc. So, answering the question, the current system's really geared for post-fall support. It's actually not in the game of falls prevention.
Yep.
So if the question's saying, could that make a difference? You betcha. Would it make a difference? Absolutely. And if we had funding or other support to engage there as well as for those who sadly do fall, that'd be a great thing. Absolutely. Now we at times at St Vincent's will cobble together, beg, borrow and steal from our little funding sources, repurpose the bits and pieces in order to try and facilitate that. We might do some exercise work. Small attempts at this question, I think, happens in some homes, not in others, by virtue of their size or capability. So yeah, it would be a good thing to get into falls prevention and then support people. The other part of it too is that we know that we could discharge people earlier from hospital if they had access to this. Rehab, for example, getting them out of hospital is good for everyone, including the hospital, but particularly the person themselves, and getting them back home and onto a good program. So yes would be the answer. If we could facilitate work earlier in the top of the cliff, if you like, preventing people falling off, as well as the work that is inbuilt in the system once they've fallen, sort of picking them up again. It's certainly got to be a good thing.
Yep. Thanks, Dane, for your question. The other question is from Mirrors Australia. So the question, I've got Robert Covino, CEO of Mirrors Australia, asking,
as the sector continues to balance financial sustainability, compliance, and delivering high-quality care, what do you believe will separate the aged care providers who thrive in the next 5 years from those who struggle?
So we know that people coming into care now are coming later with more challenges and staying for a shorter time. So that's quite a different approach to how it's been for a long time. And we know more people will be entering with dementia and other comorbidities. So providers who cope with that will be those that are around, because that will be the hallmark of the kind of person that's in residential care. So I would have thought instinctively those that can respond to that will be ones that will thrive. What does that mean? They'll be really attuned to the needs of those individuals, be able to respond particularly clinically to their circumstances, as unique or similar or common as they are. It's why St Vincent spoke about before wanting to move up that acuity curve. One, it's naturally occurring anyway, but we believe because of our clinical excellence, we can actually probably be at the hardest edge of that, working with the more challenging, the more difficult, the ones that probably won't fit in anywhere or can't. due to the constraints of the current system. So I think those that really tune into this changing cohort and how we support them would be one. The other two is that expectations of families are not going anywhere but up. But that's okay. I want them to expect great things from us, and I think the sector should try and strive to deliver it. It's tricky, it's difficult. Are we funded for all of that? That's a whole other podcast, I think. But we have to do our best. So those two that can respond to the needs of, in a really timely, loving, caring, supportive way, I think those two things come together as where you'll see excellence in aged care. It means partnering probably with others. I guess at St Vincent we've got this beautiful ability to partner with ourselves, but we're not also everywhere either, so we'll be seeking to have partnerships. But I think homes that can, or providers that can actually tap into areas of expertise that they don't have, then try and reinvent it themselves or work alongside others that can do the thing that they can't. I think that's probably an aspect of how we actually not just survive but thrive in the future world.
That's a great answer. And thank you for your question, Robert. What question do you have for the audience, my next guest? Is there anything at the top of your mind that you've challenged your own team to come up with or address?
I'm curious actually if there's providers just like me, a person just like me sitting there, how do I continue to challenge my own perceptions, paradigms, even the answers I've given you, are somewhat guardrailed by my own experience and thinking. So my invitation to actually anyone listening to this is to get in contact with me and challenge me on these things. I think I'm discovering that as our sector seeks to bloom and thrive in this environment, it'll be within a context of more challenge than ever before. Just talked about the sort of cohort changes. Mm-hmm. And a system and people that we're short of the workforce, and not only that, the capability of those people needs to raise in response to the needs of them. So there's a whole lot of challenge. I suspect the answers to this aren't actually sitting within aged care. They're probably outside of aged care. Indeed, I was privileged to be in India and Singapore in the last few weeks, exploring what others are doing completely outside of this sphere. Technology companies, telcos, military, amazing array of thought processes, technology and thinking that now I look at it and think, actually, this could be adapted for us. This could be quite a profound supportive tool, enabling tool for our work, as well as accessing the human resource that could come to this too by offering them some great career pathways that they've possibly never thought of. What am I saying? Answers will sit outside of us, and so I just want to be challenged. I need to have my answers to your questions challenged. I need people outside of our sector to go, yeah, actually, we're working on things that it sounds like that could solve a problem for you. So that would be my invitation, actually, yeah. If they wanted to be in touch with me and say, hey, Lincoln, you said this, and I really disagree with you. That would be fantastic.
So either blow up your inbox or comment below on the post of where this video will be posted. That's a great way to challenge your own assumptions.
Absolutely, thank you. And again, it's as a leader, you can sort of live in your own head, can't you, and think you've got the answers to this.
You don't know what you don't know.
Especially if there are others completely outside of my industry listening to this. I'd be fascinated to hear what they think about what I'm saying. It could well be that our problems have been solved a decade ago by somebody working in a completely different industry. Wouldn't that be nice to know? And equally, I just would like to say to them, if you're in my sector and you're doing this work, good on you. I think more power to you. I'm just, thrilled to be where I am. Of course, you've heard that message. I don't need to say it again. I think St Vincent's just an awesome place to be. But I'm just proud of the sector. I think we work hard. It's in the shadows often. It's behind the scenes. It's at a time of life that's so challenging for families, and it's emotional and difficult. And we do this beautiful work, and then families often move on, don't they, when that person passes or the situation's averted. So I just want to say thank you to them. they inspire me. This sector inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing.
I can see you are St Vincent's #1 fan, and you should be. You're the CEO of St Vincent's Care, but I can hear how genuine you are about the organisation, how much you love it, and the industry. It is hard, and you've also got to look after yourself as well. So this next bit is learning about you and how you look after yourself. How do you put a smile on your own face? Who are you outside of work in aged care?
Sure. I've often described as a volume control, actually. So I'm probably one of those strange people that work-life balance isn't kind of a paradigm I work with, because my life is my work and my work is my life. But you've got to have boundaries to that, of course. It's important for me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, to keep balanced in my mind and my body. So I'm married to Julie, got 2 adult children, one of who's got married, Hannah, and she's an OT, so that's nice to sort of keep that in the family. My son Joey's in far north Queensland, and he's a barramundi farmer of all things. So
a barramundi farmer?
That's pretty cool. Another story for another day. But they keep me grounded and stable and supported and protected, and all the good things that you need. They're kind of ground zero for me in leadership terms. But I had I'm not sure it's a midlife crisis. That would make me more than 100 if that's the case when I die. But anyway, I've taken up triathlons. Crazy, Lincoln, never done this in my life. So I've done a couple of tries, did a half marathon, thought I'd challenge myself and give something a crack. So
was there something leading up to this, or you thought, I need to jump in the deep end, triathlons the way?
That's it. I had... part of my career was working for a Queensland-based charity that had a fundraising activity as Queensland's biggest bike ride. So for many years, I participated in that. That got me into riding. And I'd started doing park runs on a Saturday for something to do. So I had 2 parts of the try. So then I threw the swimming in and off I went. So sort of muddled way through a couple of those. That was fun. And then beautiful friends of ours invited us to go for a half marathon. Why I did that? Anyway. So I'm still keeping that ticking over, actually. Backed it off a bit because that was a bit of an insane year, but I got another one coming up. So that's good for my mind and my heart, I think.
I don't know about that. Yeah, the water part, just being that exhausted and still, I don't know, the fear of drowning. Because if you're tired on a bike, you're tired while you're running, you stop, you stay still, you take a breather. You're not doing that in the water.
No, it's true, actually. And, for someone who's never done triathlon before, not open water swimming before, and getting dumped in the surf, it's pretty wild, right? So that's part of the thing, though. Not just the challenge myself thing, but that there's a whole mental coping agility thing that I was learning through that. One through training. It's lovely mindfulness process, swimming in a pool, up and back and up and back, and then out in the surf, you're absolutely getting hammered. It's a whole other coping strategy. Yeah. So keeping your breathing right, but also coping what's happening. So learn what's through the whole process anyway. That's another podcast.
When's your next, is there an event?
Yeah, it's in November. Kingscliff, Northern New South Wales, just over the border. I live in Brisbane. So
it's a triathlon?
Yeah, I'll give it a crack. A cheat's way out, actually, because the swim's in an inlet from the sea, so you don't get waves through there. So it's kind of a bit more gentle on the body, so that's good. I'm a pilot too, so I fly every now and then. That's just a little recreational thing.
Maybe we do episode 2, part 2 of this.
Another story in itself. Here I am ending up in aged care, believing it's the only thing I should be doing with my life. All true. At one point in my life, I thought I was going to be a pilot. There you go. That's another story. So that's something I dabble in. And lastly, I'm part of a really vibrant church in Brisbane that our family loves attending, and I just help out a bit on their audio-visual team. So we stream our services on a Sunday, and I get behind one of the cameras. And for an hour or so, I don't have to think. Someone yells at me through some headsets about what to do, and it's very, very different from my day job, which is just awesome. I get to sit back and relax, and somebody else runs the show. So that's what keeps me busy outside of work.
Oh, I love that. Well, to anyone out there wanting to blow up Lincoln's inbox, whether it's about aged care, flying, triathlons, like he said, and challenge his perceptions. His inbox is open, or maybe just put it in the comments just so we can all read it too.
I'd love it. I'd love it.
Lincoln, thank you so much for the conversation and being on the podcast.
Yeah, pleasure. Bless you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Cheers. Bye, guys.